Keeping Up with the Joneses, back with you again for another quick tech review. This time on the Sony Handycam HDR-CX405-450. The reason I say -450 is because the only real difference is the 450 has Wi-Fi capabilities. So I actually only have the 405 because I don't really need the Wi-Fi capabilities. I'm quite happy to plug it into a USB. And the extra 50 quid that it was for the Wi-Fi, yeah, I couldn't justify it personally for myself. So yeah, just quickly, I apologise for the varying terrible lighting on this camera. I'm using my phone because I wanted to be able to show you the new camera as we talk about some things on it. But like I say, it's just a very quick review, just a couple of little pointers for things that you might not consider, which I personally hadn't considered until I really looked into the device and started thinking about whether to purchase the device or not. So my first impressions, nice looking camera. I'm used to JVC cameras, but in my opinion JVC have really gone downhill with their cameras. You will see that if you have a look through my other videos, I recently had a I can't remember the model number, 415R. It was terrible. It was the waterproof, dustproof, all singing, all dancing, but the picture quality for a modern day camera was not acceptable, and you could hear the motor driving the lens backwards and forwards when zooming quite clearly, which really did my head in. So that's why we've gone for this. My first impressions with this are, it feels like a toy. That's my only gripe with this camera, my only gripe at all, because it's a very good camera. I like it. I like that, unlike the last JVC that I had, it has a lens protector built in. The other JVC had a horrible cap that I had to keep remembering to put back on. My JVC previous to that, which I had and lasted me 7 years and I was very happy with, had an automatic shutter, so this is a step down as far as that's concerned because I have to remember to open it, but that's not such a hardship. As long as it's built into the camera and I haven't got to remember to put it on all the time, I'm fine with that. I'm not so keen about the USB charger being tucked into the handle. I don't see why you couldn't have just allowed me to charge it with a micro USB port. That to me is over time going to wear and break. And then again, not the end of the world. If that was to break, you can remove the battery. Fine. And I can buy a little cradle to charge the battery. Great. And I can remove the micro SD card in the side like this. Fine. Great. So I can still get all of the data off of there, but it's just, it might never happen, but it could be a future inconvenience. And yes, like I say, the build quality is so... Honestly, I feel like I've picked up a child's VTech. If anything, the kids' VTech cameras I've picked up and played with... Not that it's many, I don't really play with kids' toys, but the kids' VTech cameras that I have seen, that I've come into contact with, maybe feel a bit better than this. That's my only gripe with this at all. It does the job, it doesn't need to be any... it just lets it down a little bit. So next thing to think about. The video camera has no end of different shoot modes, which again is one of the reasons I went for this one. I was a very early adopter of HD video cameras. This was my first HD video camera. JVC, where are we? 620, HD 620. Such a robust, fantastic little camera, built-in hard drive, which was nice. It's finally given up the ghost after 7 years. When I open the screen, the touchscreen no longer works. That is always going to be a point that's probably going to break over time if anything breaks on a video camera through long periods of use. But yes, the one thing that was always a pain with that camera is that it records at 50 frames interlaced in AVC HD. AVC HD is obviously the standard format for HD video recording, so that's fine. And a lot of cameras use 50i or interlaced because it's an easier way of compressing the image and getting more onto the storage space. However, when it comes to editing, and I like to do, if you go through some of my videos, you'll see that I like to do quite a lot of edit intensive footage. I like to really play about with the footage that I take, and interlaced is a horrible format. It's not a format. What's the word? I suppose it's a format. Anyway, using the interlaced method makes it very difficult to edit without it looking juddery, or it's just not nice. You can always, or I personally can always tell footage that is interlaced because it just has a slightly unnatural motion to it, a little bit of a judder. It can make your eyes feel a bit funny sometimes depending on how somebody's exported it, if they don't understand, especially when they edit some footage and then they export it again. If they've unknowingly converted it from interlaced to progressive, it doesn't work out quite well sometimes. But yes, so the Sony 405, 450 has many recording modes. A lot of those are interlaced, but we have AVC HD 50p, and then we have the XAVC XAVCDS HD recording format, which is a 50 megabytes per second sort of semi-pro. The picture quality looks a lot better with it, especially in low light. If you use the low light settings as well, it's a lot less grainy than what it is in the standard AVCD, and it's at 50p as well. So this leads me on to one of the main things to consider with this camera when you're looking at the storage to buy for it. So the XAVC HDS format, like I say, records, there we go with the light again, records at 50 megabytes per second. Now, a bog standard memory card that you stick in your phone is probably transferring data at around 7 to 20 megabytes per second at a push. The even the standard class 1s, you're looking at maybe 20-25 megabytes per second. Where people will get confused is you will even see, like with this memory card that I've got here, which is a class 10 Mark III standard SD card, meaning that it's guaranteed to read at 30 megabytes per second. Now that's read. A lot of these memory cards will boast 90 megabytes per second. That's the read speed. I was looking at lots and lots of these memory cards that are pro memory cards, sort of middle to top of the range memory cards, and they will read at 90 megabytes per second. They do not write at 90 megabytes per second. Most of them write at 30 megabytes per second. Some of them just about push 40 megabytes per second. You will still be able to record using one of those cards in the XAVCDS format, but you're not going to get the best out of it because it's not going to be able to transfer the data at 50 megabytes per second, which is obviously the intention of using that format, to get the best picture quality. So, I was searching around for a 128 gigabyte memory card because I want to use the XAVC S format as much as possible, and my concern was 64 gigabytes wouldn't be enough. Now, when you jump from when you use a 64 gigabyte, it's I'm not a memory buff, I don't understand why, but when you jump from 64 gigabytes to 128 gigabytes, the specs change for the very same card. So I purchased in the end two of these Toshiba Let's see if we can get that. No, we won't be able to because this is a stupid phone camera. Anyway, Toshiba Xperia 64GB memory card. That will write at 60 megabytes per second. It's guaranteed a minimum of 30 megabytes per second because it's a Mark III card, but it will write at, as long as their website is to be believed, it will write, not read, it will write at 60 megabytes per second. As soon as you jump to the 128GB memory card, Xperia, exactly the same memory card, it drops to 30 megabytes per second. It must be something to do with obviously trying to store more or gain more space from the same size chip. So you then have to start looking at the top memory cards to be able to be getting the sort of 60-70 megabytes per second transfer speed, and you're then talking megabucks. I ended up purchasing 2 of these, so equaling 128 gigabytes. Okay, bummer, I have to carry it around, an extra card around. But I got 2 of those for £35 delivered on Amazon. I will leave the link below. If I wanted the 128GB memory card, you were looking at sort of, I think it was about £70-80. The best one of those I found was Kingston, and that was, I think that was £70. That was about the cheapest I found for a 128GB card that would give me the 50 megabytes plus speed, write speed that I would need. So yeah, that was the main thing I wanted to do in this review, was talk to you about the memory that you will need for this video camera if you intend on using that format, because it's not something that they explain. I mean, okay, they state yes, it's 50 megabytes per second, but whether many people would think, oh, that means I need a memory card, I don't know. So I just wanted to let you know. And really, there isn't much else to do as far as a review goes for this camera. This is meant to be a quick review, and I've blabbered on way too long already. But if you do want to see the test footage, the camera has got a fantastic zoom. It's 30 times optical, 60 times clear zoom, and it is the best zoom I've ever seen. It's not quite a digital zoom. When you start going into digital zoom, it looks terrible. I've never bothered with digital zoom, but this looked quite clear, quite clean, quite nice. And the stabilisation is some of the best stabilisation I've ever seen on a camera. I have a little tripod that also folds into a gun mount to try and help with stabilisation in the past, and I don't feel like I need that anymore. Like I say, if you go and have a look at the test footage, I, like a pillock, ran around the garden. And it was still really steady, really nice. It didn't really mess about with, it didn't distort the picture in any way to achieve those stabilisation effects. And overall, a very, very good camera for the current £200 price tag that it can be found at. I hope that was of some use to you. As always, please give us a like, give us a thumbs up, and why not subscribe? Cheers, guys.